Reveling flooded pieces uprooted trees and torrent cascading down the marble column of Palermo Cathedral. Firefighters walking through the night rescued families trapped in their homes and cleared fallen debris from the Via Roma and the Pisa Piletama. At least 13 people were theatering the minor injured, while several vehicles were reported missing after being swept away by the flash flood. Local hospitals operated on emergency generators as a power outage ripped through the city's core. The Spanish region of Valencia has been hit by a severe storm that has brought torrential rain, violent winds and severe flooding, leaving streets submerged and continues gradually to recover. Meteorologists say a system pellet the Mosul by Mediterranean dumped more than 200 mm of rain in just 24 hours, one of the most intense downpour in decades. Entire neighborhoods in the city of Valencia were left underwater, and the residents were forced to wade through waist-deep water. Emergency service carried out hundreds of rescue, including drivers trapped in submerged cars and families evacuated from ground-floor apartments. At least 4 fatalities have been confirmed, while dozens of people have been injured by falling debris and traffic incidents. The part of Valencia, one of the barriers in Europe, was temporarily closed after a crane that knocked down by strong winds disrupted shipments across the Mediterranean. Public transport was brought in a standstill, subway lines were suspended, flights were diverted, and rail services were cancelled throughout the region.
Assassini! Delinquenti sono! Delinquenti sono! Sono dei delinquenti! A muoversi in questo tempo! Delinquenti!
Rome was gripped the chaos late Tuesday. A violent storm swept across the Italian capital, bringing torrential rain, hail and lightning strikes have plunged the parts of the city in darkness. Within an hour, the storm transformed cobblestone streets into rivers and flooded metro tunnels, leaving the residents stranded in an emergency service stretched within. The Italian Civil Protection Department confirmed over 800 emergency calls overnight. Streets surrounding Pisa Venezia, Termini station and Vatican were submerged under the half-meter of water. Local media reported dozens of vehicles stranded with the fallen trees, crushed parked cars and blocked tram lines. "I felt like the sky was collapsing," said Francesca Rinaldi, the resident of Trastevere. "The thunder was constant, it shook windows, we had the struggler hitting the roof, I threw the glass would shatter." Meteorologists described the storm as a part of the Mediterranean supercell, filled the unstoppably warm sea and the cold wind with the cold front moving south from the Alps. When it reached 19 km per hour, and a hailstorm the size of walnuts battered rooftops and monuments. Dramatic footage circulated online showing lightning strikes near the Colosseum and illumination St. Petersburg sky and the flashing era wide. The Tiber rivers were rapidly prompted warning to the residents living along the banks. Rome against infrastructure is not built in such intensify, such Professor Enzo Mariani, a climate analyst from the Super Zen University. This is another reminder that climate change is making extreme weather for more frequent is unpredictable across southern Europe. A sudden and violent storm hit Sicily, leaving flooded streets and damaged houses, and residents trying to save themselves. Torrential rain, strong winds, and large hailstorms swept across the island, hitting Palermo, Catania, and Messina particularly hard. "It was terrible," said Gianni Canti in residence of Palermo. "The hail broke out windows, and the water poured in the streets like a river. I've never seen anything like it." Emergency service worked for the full capacity, responded to fallen trees, blocked roads, and stranded cars. Several rivers, including smaller turbulence in Catania, they burst their banks, forced dozens of families to evacuate. The streets to coastal towns were impossible, and local airports responded to numerous delays and cancellation. Historical cities were also affected. In Palermo, flooded inundated part of the cathedral and Quattro County secure, while tourist centers such as Turmania had to carry out emergency evacuation. Boats were washed away from their mooring, and the local market were forced to close. Meteorologists explained the storm as a collision between the Mediterranean low-pressure system and warm, humid air from the Africa. This great short but extremely intense storm. Agriculture area suffered significant damage. Olive groves, vineyard, and citrus orange by damage by the hail, threatening both local economy and exports. Authority called for emergency aid to affected farmers and businesses.
Vai di là, chiudi.
The Spanish Meteorological Service has declared a red alert for the eastern parts of the Valencia region due to heavy rain. Thursday, a repeat of the flooding that killed 235 people in the area last October. Spanish National Meteorological Service warned of extreme danger and a very difficult situation in Tarragona, Castellón and Valencia on a Sunday and Monday. On this warning was echoed Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. Citing of meteorological warning, Sanchez urged citizens to follow the instruction of the emergency service to all times. Local official announced that school and college, libraries and parks, as well as public space including gardens, markets and cemeteries would be closed in the Valencia on a Monday. Overnight rains caused local flooding and overflowing of Arroyo Aldea, one of the town hardest hit by October 2024 flooded that killed more than 213 people. No casualties have been reported. On a Sunday afternoon, residents of the city received a red weather alert on this phone. The flooding caused by heavy rains in October last year were exacerbated by the effect of climate change. As a warning atmosphere holds more water, climate change increasing the risk and intensity of the flood from extreme rainfall. Local residents triggered a series of protests against for the believed this mismanagement of last year's crisis calamity. The regional offices did not warn in the time, despite the fact that Meteorological Service had issued warning. Meteorologists from the Italian Air Force Meteorological Center attributed the phenomenon of supercell storm. They explained it in a result from the sudden collisions between most air from the Tyrrhenian Sea and a cold front air masses moving south from the Central Europe. The constant created the perfect environment for the formation of giant hailstones, explained senior meteorologist Luca Moretti. Public transportation suffered severe disruption with the metro line E temporarily suspended due to flooding at multiple stations. Major arterial roads in the city experienced severe traffic conditions, paralyzed urban function. Authority urged residents to avoid non-essential outing while drainage channels and the road continue to be clear. Experts warn this phenomenon is a part of concerned terrain. Climate analyst Dr. Paolo Rossi stated, these extreme weather events are not longer isolated occurrences, they are increasing in frequency and intensity, representing a direct sign of climate change impacting the Mediterranean basin. Amid the chaos, no fatalities were reported, though the several people sustained minor injuries from the flying debris. As a calm returned, Rome was reminded once again ever is timeless, beauty cannot escape the growing fury of nature. Europe is rooted after the wave of powerful storms swept across the continent, bringing hurricane-force wind, torrential rain, hail and flooding from Spain to Poland. Authorities have confirmed dozens of fatalities and hundreds of injured, with hundreds of thousands of households remain without electricity. In France, Paris, and hammered by heavy rain, is a lightning force to close the metro lines and grounded flights to Charlotte, the airport. Streets and flying and boardwalks turned into rivers. An emergency crew reported more than 5,000 clouds overnight. Germany also brought to breath with a tornado like a wind North Rhine-Westphalia, ripping roofs to homes and uprooted trees. Rail service were suspended, highways blocked, and the school closed to official urged residents to stay indoors. It felt like the sky exploded, said Jens Fischer, with so-called lifted to overturned by sudden gusts. In Italy, Venice and Milan were swept by the flash floods, while the Rome endured the violent hailstorms that shattered windows and damaged cars. Authorities warned to rising river levels in the north, in the fear of further flooding in the Po Valley. Spain forcing massive coastal swells and lightning storms, particularly in Barcelona and Valencia, where the Poland and Czech Republic struggled with the power cuts and transportation shutdowns after gale force winds across Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days while thousands of travelers were stranded with the train station. Insurance provider estimates the damage could reach billions of euros after gale force winds across the Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days with thousands of Meteorologists said the storm system was following the coastal line by humid Mediterranean air called Atlantic Front, creating a volatile chain reaction across the Europe. Scientists warn the climate change is making such extreme wide-reaching weather events increasingly frequent. Sicily, Italy's largest island, has been hit one of the strongest storms in recent times. One of the night of June 27, several weather warnings brought more than 180 mm of rainfall in just 20 hours, more than the region usually received in entire month. This was hit area where Palermo, Catania, Anginda and Messina were the hardest hit. Authorities confirmed that at least 3 people died as a result of the flooding electrocutions. Among the victims was a 45-year-old man from the town of Biancivaga, who was trapped in this car where sudden flood inundated in low like unprecedented. In Palermo, emergency service responded more than 14 calls in one night. More than 120 homes were reportedly flooded in historic districts of Calza and Bellero. In the town of Aguirre and Mount Etna, landslides to the evacuation more than 17 residents, while the rescue volunteers injured several persons. Power outage affected nearly 30,000 homes. An emergency company, Aeneas, sent dozens of repair crews on the island. Rain severe between Catania and Syracuse was suspended, and yet Falcon Belen Airport. 15 flights were delayed or diverted due to heavy rain and a wind gust exceeded 19 km/h. Rome was hit a sudden and violent hailstorm that turned cobbled streets into the city rivers and shocking residents. The storm, which hit during the evening rush hour, brought golf-sized ball hailstones, torrential rain and strong winds of the city caused significant disruption and damage. Within minutes, major thoroughfares such as Via del Corso were covered in ice, bringing traffic at standstill. Cars were damaged, white ships were shattered, and motorcyclists were forced to abandon their vehicles. It was like a bombardment of stones from the sky, said Marco De Santis, who took shelter in the cafe where the storm reached. Public transport were paralyzed, several metro stations were flooded, and tram service were suspended. at Fiumicino Airport, flights were delayed after the runway were covered with slush and ground strength rose to clear the debris. The city's historic landmark also suffered significant damage from the storm. Tourists took shelter under the arches of Colosseum and up its antient area to layers into ice accumulated to steps to Spanish stamps and Pisa, Venezia. Emergency service rushed to protect archaeological sites, fearing the water seepage could damage the fragile structures. Hospitals reported dozens of injuries, mostly from the slippers on the ice sidewalks or being stuck on fallen bridges. Power outage left thousands of homes in darkness. In the flash floods inundated underground parking lots of basements in low-lying areas such as Testorio and Toscana. Meteorologists explained that the storm formed that the warm Mediterranean air collided with the cold front moving south from northern Europe, creating strong updrafts that caused unusually large hailstorms. Experts warn that due to climate change, such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense throughout Italy. Major boulevard from Camps Elias and Boulevard Saint Germain turned to Russian River, submerged vehicles including metro station. The Red B and Light 7 were partly suspended water pouring on the tracks, while traffic ground and a half along the scene were rising water tethering the riverbanks and cafes. The water came like a wave, said cafe owner Matra Fowler. Those small restaurant near multiple that flooded with a minute. People were screaming, chairs were floating, it felt like a city was drawing. The Louvre Museum and Musée Old Drive both activated flood protection barriers, moving 8 work store underground to the higher floors, a precaution not taken since the Great Flood of 2016. The Elef Tower temporarily closed a light storm stuck nearly creating a surreal stain that thinly echoes across the darkened skyline. Authorities reported no fatalities, through at least 14 people were rescued from submerged vehicles and several were treated to hypothermia. Emergency crew worked throughout the night and pumped water from the metro tunnels and cleared fallen trees that blocked roads in the 16th and 19th arrondissements. Saragossa, the capital of Spain, Aragon region, was hit by catastrophic flooding after continuous rainfall caused the Ebro River in these tributaries to burst their banks. According to the official sources, more than 118 millimeters of rainfall in 36 hours, a record for the last decade. Entire neighborhoods along the river were flooded, forcing hundreds of people to evacuate, and rescue teams used boats to reach residents who were trapped. Schools and businesses remained closed, and authorities converted the sports, hail, and temporary shelters for the families left homeless. At least 3 people were confirmed dead, and dozens of injured in the traffic incidents and building collapsing related for the floods. In the city center, cars floated along flooded boulevards, and underground parking lot and the sideway station were filled in water in a matter of minutes. Rail service in Aragon was suspended, and a highway connecting Saragossa, Madrid, and Barcelona were closed after landslides buried sectors on the road. Local residents described the sense of apocalypse. In just half an hour, water poured into the streets like a river. We lost everything in the first floor, said Maria Lopez, whose family home in the Actor districts was flooded. Farmers across Aragon have also suffered devastation losers. Flooded wheat fields, vineyards, and livestock found threatening month and harvest and livelihood. The economic damage is already estimated of tens of millions of euros. Insurance companies are prepared for the wave of insurance claims. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has promised immediate aid and emergency support, stressing that the community will be left without help. Experts warn that such events are becoming more frequent due to climate change, especially in the southern Europe. Palermo Major Robert Lalacalla called the government assistants say this is no longer a seasonal storm. This is a climate emergency. We need to urgent investment in infrastructure and prevention. No casualties have been confirmed, but dozens of people have been received medical attention and injured in the shock. The Italian government has promised to assess the damage and provide funds to clean up in the coming days. Sicily is beginning a lengthy cleanup. The storm is stark reminder of increasing unpredictability of nature in the face of global warming. In Messina, landslides blocked major highway, isolated several mountains village. Farmers in Serre reported several damaged crops with the olive groves and a vineyard underwater. One of the local farmers, Antonio Bellini, said, "We have lost half of our harvest. We haven't seen rain like this in 40 years." Temporary shelters were set up in community center and church for families who were forced to leave their homes. Volunteers are working around the clock to distribute food, blankets of our necessities.
Guardate come piove, come nevica a Pasqua.
The small town of Al-Balif in province of Como was left in shock after severe hailstorm hit the area on a Monday evening, covering streets, cars and roofs with ice balls with the size of walnuts in some areas tennis ball. The storm, which lasted less than half an hour, caused significant damage but struck locals with a sudden ferocity. Residents describe it chaotic stints and roads turned wild in a matter of minutes, forcing cars to stop. It was like an attack, where the hail was so strong that it broke roofs, totaled and damaged cars in the second, said Maria Conti, a shop owner in the city center. Several houses had broken windows and emergency service received dozens of calls for help. Firefighters worked throughout the night and cleared fallen branches to secure damaged roofs, with the local farmers reported significant crops losers, especially in vineyards and orange, were weeks away from the harvest. Agriculture Association estimated the damage of hundreds of thousands of euros. Videos posted online showed the streets Albaville resembling frozen river with a drain overflowing with a sudden rush in water and ice. Public transport were the disruption throughout the province of Como, and temporarily enclosures were put up in place to prevent accidents. Meteorologists explained the phenomenon as a result in the sharp rise in hot, humid air against the cold front moving from the northern Italy, and the collisions that can cause severe thunderstorm and hail. Experts also noted that climate change is increasing both with the frequency and severity of such events throughout the region. Local authority urged residents to check instability in their roofs and vehicles, and the major promised rapid assistance to those affected. Albaville was faced many storms, but this was one of the worst in recent years. "We support our community in the recovery," he said. For the many residents of the province of Como, this storm was stark reminder of the unpredictability of nature, and the growing challenge is adapting to weather conditions. The instability created perfect conditions to the supercell formation, explained meteorologist Elena Caruso. The hailstone size of the speed formation are extraordinary for this season. Several flights to Catania, Fortenerosa Airport were delayed due to low visibility and lighting activity, while local trains between Palermo and Messina were suspended after debris covered the track. Farmers across the central Sicily have reported severe crop damage, particularly to vineyard and citrus grove. They destroyed nearly half of the harvest, said vineyard owner Salvatore Gianto. "In 13 years, I never seen hail like this." Video shared on social media showed rivers and white hail racing through the streets in Palermo, while the residents used shovels to of clear pathway in the after of snowstorm. Power outages were reported in the multiple municipalities, and several coastal towns experienced shocked by intense flooding. Experts warn that such extreme events are becoming increasingly common. Mediterranean regions like Sicily are highest vulnerable in the climate experts, said climatologist Dr. Paolo Leone. A series of powerful hailstorms swept across Europe, causing chaos, destruction, and dramatic scenes from Italy to Germany, France, and Croatia. The storm intensified the collision of the most Mediterranean air and the cold front moving from the north to brought the Gulf-sized hailstorms. Strong winds and torrential rain disrupted transport, agriculture, and daily life in several countries. In northern Italy, the region in Lombardy and Emilia-Romagna were worst affected. A road turned wide and a hailstorm blackened crisis in a minute, smashed car wide shift, and destroyed it and groups. It sounded like a shot of the roof, say Marco Rossi, a resident of Bologna, describing the definite noise of a cave pounding its house. Meanwhile, in southern Germany, emergency service responded to hundreds of calls when powerful supercell storm hit Bavaria. Roofs were damaged, trees were uprooted, and train service were temporarily suspended. In Munich, trams and buses were suspended after the ice blocked tracks. We haven't seen such large hailstorms in many years, said meteorologist Anna Weber of the German Meteorological Service. In France of the storm front caused chaos in a Rhode Alps region where dramatic footage showed hail covering fields like snow. Local farmers in the Lazio region reported severe damage on a vineyard and olive grove during accompanied harvest season. Social media flooded with the shocking footage on hail pelting on around Colosseum and Treaty Foundation with the thunder echoing across the sky. Many Romans struggled to hide in their astonishment. It's like the end of the world, said Maria, a shop owner in the Trastevere district. The street turned completely white in an instant. I've never seen anything like that. Experts warn that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent as the climate patterns in southern Europe shift. We are witnessing the Mediterranean region transformed into a source of violent storm, stated climatologist Sofia Romano. As snow removal crews cleared the ice debris, Rome felt that the aftermath of extreme weather damage and stark reminder of the event of Eternal City is not immune to natural fury. A violent storm has battered Germany, causing strong winds, torrential rain, and widespread disruption north from the North Sea to Bavaria. The system, one of the worst intense of the season, was uprooted trees, torn off roofs, and left hundreds of thousands of people without power. In Hamburg and Bremen, storm surge flooded riverside neighborhoods, and emergency crews rushed to build buried as the Elbe River overflowed. In Berlin, fallen trees blocked major roads in the tram lines, forcing communities to find alternative roads. Munich International Airports reported more than 100 cancelled flights, while trains in Bavaria and Saxony were halted due to the debris in tracks. Authorities confirmed multiple fatalities, including driver crushed by the fallen trees and the rescue workers swept away by the floodwaters. Dozens of people were injured by many debris flying through the city center. Hospital reported an increase in emergency admissions overnight. Residents described the storm as apocalyptic. The wind sounded like a freight train outside my window. We were building and shaking, said Anne Miller, a resident of Berlin.